Well, happy Saturday, folks. The real Captain Kirk here. We're live from Bethlehem Plaza here on the 7th of February. It's a frigid day. It's going to be about a high of 12 if we're lucky here. Had some snow shower squalls coming through. So just day 22 of below normal temperatures. Got about 10 more. So we're going to go almost 33 days with the below normal temperatures, which is a crazy long cycle. One thing we talked to here with our JP Morgan client here this past week, looking at their given outlook for the year ahead, is looking at this rapidly changing La Niña ocean cycle. So again, this is a cross-section of the Pacific equatorial position, going all the way from central Australia, Hawaii in the middle, to California, Ecuador in the east. Much below normal. This is below the surface now. Water temperatures here in the East Pacific. And if we look at, again, just a few months later, rapid warming. So much above average temperature. So no doubt about it, we're headed for a weak, maybe moderate El Nino, weak by spring, and then maybe moderate by summer into fall. Again, thought we talked a little bit about our AI robots here, and tell me something about your heating bill. A lot of folks are freaking out about should be, because again, the weather's just off the scale cold here, obviously in the eastern half of the country, frigid down in Florida. So we just picked on New York City here, but again, so huge change, 33%, 40, 50% increases in your consumption passed in January. Unfortunately, our widget here, energy widget, calculates for February, even though with the thaw, 25% over last year. March, 25%. So still huge heating bills. Unfortunately, this does impact consumer spending, right? If you get slammed with a big bill, you're going to have less income as you go into the spring time frame. So we're a little bearish on the coldest, snowiest spring in 7 years. Thought we'd ask our robot then again, way out there, Christmas. Always get asked about Christmas, December time frame. So again, gives a weather narrative, chat, grok type scenario. Snowy's in 9 years. This is classic El Nino out in the west with cold and snowy in the west. They didn't have that this year, so it's good news for them next year. So again, go month by month here real quick. So this is our world outlook for first week of Christmas, December actually, second week through the 13th, 19th. Get out to Christmas week here now. So this is Christmas week. Huge blast of cold air in the western 2/3 of the country. And anytime you see that warmer air here, colder here, you can get a storm in the middle. So again, we do have a very snowy December on a global scale. We get last week real summer here, ending today here. Frigid again, 7.5 cold in last year. Coldest in 3, 13th coldest in 41. But again, tale of two halves. Actually, in the east, we'd say the coldest in 41 plus almost 50 years. Frigid conditions, obviously, down in Florida, wiping out some crops and folks' trees and palm trees and iguanas falling out of the trees. So frigid, really, in the eastern part of the country. U.S. snowfall down 47% and drier, 58% drier. So this time of year, we like warm, dry weather for store traffic, which has gotten absolutely clobbered here the last few weeks. Again, so some good news here on the way here. Still cool air in Europe, cool to cold in Europe and Russia, down coldest in 7 years. Still wet down in Brazil, wettest in 10 years as they start to think about harvesting their first full season corn crop. So it's been a wet year for them down there and probably a great crop conditions. Looking at season date snowfall here ending today here. So we're still up about 33% more than last year, most in 9 years. 20th most in 41 years, hair below average. The only difference here is it looks like a lot of snow out there in the west, again, way below average. In some areas, actually 90% below average, just crazy low snow totals. Some areas, the ski resorts in Utah are almost skiing on bare rock. It's crazy because they usually, low bad year would be a couple hundred, 200-300 inches, and just way below average snowfall. Snow cover here this morning made a flip-flop from last year. It's all in the Pacific Northwest, and this year it's all in the Great Lakes East. Look at that, way less snowfall there in the Rocky Mountains, Pacific Northwest. So about 28% of us are covered in snow. So it's down a little bit from average and just similar to last year, just in different spots. A little skeptical here on the 2-week outlook with snowstorm here again right now. Again, suggesting a couple down weeks here in terms of snowfall versus a year ago. We have some doubts here because the Euro and some models have been hinting at a bigger storm here, both for Valentine's Day week and maybe another one or merging into another one mid next week. So we'll see here. Again, models kind of flip-flopped a bit. Looking at the cold index, the sub 32 degree days up 4% over last year, most in 5 years. Still a little below average, but picking up more steam here again this week in the east. Valentine's Day week here this week, again on the 14th here, Saturday. Good news, a warmer trend. So it was pretty frigid here this time last year. 8.9 warmer than a year ago, warmest in 3, fifth warmest in 41 years. Still cold here. We got all the snowpack here in the east. Still, we're the cold spot here in the northeast. Unfortunately, we want to thaw. Really warm there in the central U.S. and start to see some of that signs of colder, stormier weather heading to the west. Overall, though, the week is 78% less snow than a year ago, least in 3, fourth least in 41 years. So definitely a little break here on the snow. We'll see. You see that storm in Texas. Again, models had been hinting that could have a big Valentine's Day snowstorm here in the northeast. Again, kind of hinted taking it out a bit today. So something to watch. It's still possible. It's a week away. looking at about 65% drier than last year, driest in 4 years, 12th driest. So we like warm, dry weather, and that's good for store traffic. So some hope here in the central U.S. Definitely getting a February thaw. Look at the 6-day snowfall outlook here. Again, we had some light snow showers here, quarter inch or so in the Lehigh Valley outside our offices here. Another little system through the Great Lakes. Some signs of snow in the Pacific Northwest, the Sierras. And as we get into Wednesday, a little bit more across the Rockies. This will expand over the next, say, 10 days. And then another clipper system going through the Minneapolis area. So even though it's milder, you can still get some snow. Obviously, milder still means cold this time of year. And the 6-day outlook here is just 65% less than a year ago, least in 3 years, 12th least in 41 years, below average. But about 45% of this country getting some light snow. And if we look at next week here, President's Day here on the 16th, Monday, record very cold. It was like the second coldest in 40 years last year this week. And this year's much, much warmer, 14.4 warmer nationally, 13th warmest in 41 years. I'd be careful with those temperatures in the east, northeast. The lows are higher than average, but the daytime highs are not too far from average. In fact, in some cases below average. So the nighttime lows are skewing that map a bit. So it's not going to feel like a major heat wave on any level. But again, going from the frigid conditions to slightly below normal is going to be better than what we got right now. Looking at snowfall, again, 51%. We'll see. Again, it was hinting at a midweek pattern here of a snowstorm. You see all that heavy rain. So there's a storm there. The question is there enough cold air here in the northeast to make that a snowstorm? Maybe. Models have been hinting it's a possibility. And wet, 44% wetter than last year. Wettest in 5 years nationally. 10th wettest in 41 years. We're starting to see some of that heavy snow in the west. They need it. And signs of even kind of an El Niño type cycle here maybe starting to emerge. We do expect to be a very wet 2026 here across the U.S. after some very dry La Nina type cycles, which create subsidence in the Americas, South America, droughts. We think that's going to get erased here in 2026. Look at the world 2-week temperature outlook here. Again, so theme is warm, especially the central U.S. Polar vortex not too hard to find there in northern Europe and Alaska, northern Canada. It's a split polar vortex. That means it's weak, but it's getting a little bit stronger here. So stronger pulls the cold air back, which it's doing in the Americas. And don't get too excited about that because we do think it comes roaring back in late February and much of March. So we do have a very cold, snowy March in the forecast. And if we look at the world precip outlook here, so storm here, getting pattern, a couple storm systems going across the U.S. and still pretty wet there down in Brazil for their crops. And they're actually starting to harvest now. So they actually probably would like some drier weather after a wettest in, I think, about 14 years for some of their key crop areas. So good crops coming out of Brazil, which will put some price pressure on corn and soybeans. And again, folks, just don't forget you can get this in a blog email every day. So it'll be the blog, the video every Saturday afternoon. So folks, have a great week ahead, and we'll talk to you this time next week.